This part of the work of Moses records the movement of the children of Israel from Mount Sinai to Mount Pisgah, which was on the east side of the Jordan River and overlooked the Promised Land. The book includes an account of the numbering of Israel, the Levitical preparations for moving the tabernacle, why Israel was cursed with 40 years of wandering, the second numbering of Israel after those above 20 years of age at the time of the Exodus had died, the choosing of Joshua to lead Israel, and a description of some land inheritances by the various tribes.
As the Israelites traveled in the wilderness, Moses grew weary of their murmuring and sought help from the Lord. As a result, the Lord chose 70 leaders to help Moses govern Israel. Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses, and the Lord chastised them for speaking against his chosen servant.
Life in today's world can be at times so complicated and the challenges so overwhelming as to be beyond our individual capacity to resolve them. We all need help from the Lord. Yet there are many individuals who don't know how to receive that help. They feel their urgent pleas for help have often gone unattended. Such difficulty results from either not following his spiritual law for providing help, or from not recognizing help when it comes. Well did James observe, "Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss." True, the Lord has said, "Ask, and ye shall receive." But he also declared, "Behold, ye have not understood. Ye have supposed that I would give it unto you when you took no thought, save it was to ask me." It is evident that he intends that we do our part. As much as we want help, we must expect to follow the spiritual law that controls that help. Spiritual law is not mysterious. It is something that we can understand. The Scriptures define it in significant detail. It matters very much what we ask for and how we ask for it. I testify that when we seek His will and do it, we will obtain the greatest blessings in life. We must strive to be worthy and to exercise the requisite faith to do what we are able. Where it is intended that others help, we must use that help also. It is through the combination of our doing what is within our power to accomplish and the power of the Lord that the blessing is realized.
In answer to Moses' request for help, 70 men were chosen and endowed with the Spirit that was upon him, i.e., upon Moses. It means they were endowed with some of the same authority and spiritual gifts so that they were able also to prophesy. When some people objected that 2 of the men were prophesying who did not come out for the ceremony of installation, Moses said wishfully, "Would God that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put His Spirit upon them." He refused to forbid them to prophesy.
In this material is another evidence of Moses' greatness. Some leaders would be threatened if subordinates evidenced gifts and abilities similar to their own, because then their own status and position would be jeopardized. Not so with Moses. In answer to Joshua's complaint, Moses asked, "Enviest thou for my sake?" Not only was he not threatened by this remarkable sharing of his spiritual power, but he expressed the desire to have every single Israelite share the same power with him. Note that we live in a dispensation when all members of the congregation of the Lord may have the gift of prophecy, and other gifts, by virtue of the fact that all who are baptized are given the gift of the Holy Ghost. Probably some of us do not exercise it, however.
We cannot depend on the testimonies of other people. We need to know for ourselves. The source of this sure knowledge and firm conviction is divine revelation, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. We receive this testimony when the Holy Spirit speaks to the Spirit within us. We will receive a calm and unwavering certainty that will be the source of our testimony and conviction, irrespective of our culture, race, language, or socioeconomic background. These promptings of the Spirit, rather than human logic alone, will be the true foundation upon which our testimony will be built. The core of this testimony will always be in the faith in and the knowledge of Jesus Christ and his divine mission.
According to Josephus, when Moses was a general of the Egyptian army in the attack against the Ethiopians, he married an Ethiopian woman as a political alliance to end the war. The ostensible reason for Miriam's and Aaron's complaining was that the Ethiopians were non-Israelite descendants of Cush. The real reason for the complaint, however, seems to have been jealousy motivated by Moses' position as spiritual leader and prophet of Israel. This elevation of Moses excited envy on the part of his brother and sister, whom God had also richly endowed and placed so high that Miriam was distinguished as a prophetess above all the women of Israel, whilst Aaron had been raised by his investiture with the high priesthood into the spiritual head of the whole nation. But the pride of the natural heart was not satisfied with this. They would dispute with their brother Moses the preeminence of his special calling and his exclusive position, which they might possibly regard themselves as entitled to contest with him not only as his brother and sister, but also as the nearest supporters of his vocation. Miriam was the instigator of the open rebellion, as we may see both from the fact that her name stands before that of Aaron, and also from the use of the feminine verb.
Brothers and sisters, there are going to be times in our lives when someone else gets an unexpected blessing or receives some special recognition. May I plead with us not to be hurt, and certainly not to feel envious when good fortune comes to another person. We are not diminished when someone else is added upon. We're not in a race against each other to see who's the wealthiest or the most talented or the most beautiful or even the most blessed. The race we are really in is the race against sin, and surely envy is one of the most universal of those. Furthermore, envy is a mistake that just keeps on giving. Obviously, we suffer a little when some misfortune befalls us, but envy requires us to suffer all good fortune that befalls everyone we know. What a bright prospect that is. Downing another quart of pickle juice every time anyone around you has a happy moment. Coveting, pouting, or tearing others down does not elevate your standing, nor does demeaning someone else improve your self-image. So be kind and be grateful that God is kind. It is a happy way to live.
When God sent the quail in answer to Israel's longing for something other than manna, the people turned gluttonous. The smallest catch equaled about 100 bushels, far beyond normal need. The greedy lust for more than they could use brought a just punishment upon the people. How many died in the plague is not recorded, but the place was called Graves of the Craving or the Graves of Lust.
When it comes to overcoming being greedy, selfish, and overly indulgent, we all need a lot more help. In his candid manner, President Brigham Young said, "The worst fear I have about this people is that they will get rich in this country, forget God and his people, wax fat, and kick themselves out of the church. My greatest fear is that they cannot stand wealth." The more our hearts and minds are turned to assisting others less fortunate than we, the more we will avoid the spiritually cankering effects that result from greed, selfishness, and overindulgence. Our resources are a stewardship, not our possessions. I'm confident that we will literally be called upon to make an accounting before God concerning how we have used them to bless lives and build the kingdom.
Moses and the children of Israel traveled from Mount Sinai in hopes of repossessing the land promised to them according to the divine covenants made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Before entering that land, the Lord told Moses to send some men to explore the land of Canaan. Moses chose 12 men, one from each tribe, every one a ruler among them, into the land. They searched it from the south to the north and back again, a distance of about 250 miles each way, for 40 days. On their way back to camp, they stopped by the brook Eshcol near the village of Hebron and cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. 2 of the men hoisted it upon a pole and carried it between them. The size of the grape cluster was an indication of the goodness of the land. They also gathered pomegranates and figs to show the people. Returning to the people, all 12 men reported assuredly to the children of Israel that the land floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. However, 10 of the 12 spies also fearfully reported that the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. A spontaneous murmur echoed through the camp. 2 of the spies, Caleb from the tribe of Judah and Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim, went forward to calm the people. They confirmed the fruitfulness of the land, but disagreed that it could not be conquered. Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. Caleb pled. Not so, replied the 10 other spies, as they continued to spread the frightening report among the people. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight, they said. The people had a choice. Would they direct their attention to the large cluster of grapes and the hope of future harvests in the land the Lord had promised them, or would they focus on the words of the 10 faithless leaders about the height of the walls and the difficulties they might face in conquering the land? The people mourned and wept that night. They talked of returning to Egypt and rebelling against Moses. In vain, Caleb and Joshua tried to kindle some faith in their hearts by assuring them, if the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land, and give it us. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land. The Lord is with us, fear them not. The people chose fear instead of faith.
It would be easy to become discouraged and cynical about the future, or even fearful of what might come, if we allowed ourselves to dwell only on that which is wrong in the world and in our lives. Today, however, I'd like us to turn our thoughts and our attitudes away from the troubles around us and to focus instead on our blessings as members of the church. The Apostle Paul declared, God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The history of the church in this, the dispensation of the fullness of times, is replete with the experiences of those who struggled, and yet who've remained steadfast and of good cheer, as they have made the gospel of Jesus Christ the center of their lives. This attitude is what will pull us through whatever comes our way. It will not remove our troubles from us, but rather will enable us to face our challenges, to meet them head on, and to emerge victorious.
Just like the children of Israel, we face formidable obstacles. It isn't wrong for us to recognize those obstacles, but it is important that we face them with faith. Each challenge and each obstacle we face is an opportunity to choose, as did Joshua and Caleb, to rely on the Lord. Rebel not, neither fear was good counsel for the children of Israel, and it is still good counsel for each of us today.
Earth life includes tests, trials, and tribulations. And some of the trials we face in life can be excruciating. Whether it be illness, betrayal, temptations, loss of a loved one, natural disasters, or some other ordeal, affliction is part of our mortal experience. Many have wondered why we must face difficult challenges. We know that one reason is to provide a trial of our faith, to see if we will do all the Lord has commanded. Fortunately, this earth life is the perfect setting to face and pass these tests. But these trials are not just to test us. They are vitally important to the process of putting on the divine nature. If we handle these afflictions properly, they will be consecrated for our gain. Elder Orson F. Whitney said, "No pain that we suffer, no trial that we experience is wasted. All that we suffer and all that we endure, especially when we endure it patiently, builds up our characters, purifies our hearts, expands our souls, and makes us more tender and charitable. It is through sorrow and suffering, toil and tribulation, that we gain the education that we come here to acquire." End of quote. A pattern in the scriptures and in life shows that many times the darkest, most dangerous tests immediately precede remarkable events and tremendous growth. After much tribulation come the blessings. The children of Israel were trapped against the Red Sea before it was parted. Nephi faced danger, anger from his brothers, and multiple failures before he was able to procure the brass plates. Joseph Smith was overcome by an evil power so strong that it seemed he was doomed to utter destruction. Time after time, we see marvelous blessings on the heels of great trials.
Such an exaggerated report of itself was bad enough and demonstrated the lack of faith of the 10 men who gave it. But the national tragedy began when Israel hearkened to their report. They openly rejected the numerous evidences of God's power that had been almost daily fare and began to cry out that it would have been better for them never to have left Egypt. Nor did the murmuring stop there. A movement was started to reject Moses and choose a leader that would take them back to Egypt. See Numbers 14:4 and Nehemiah 9 verse 17, which suggests that they actually chose the leaders who would take them back. When Joshua and Caleb tried to counteract the effect of the negative report, the congregation sought to have them stoned. Little wonder that the anger of the Lord was kindled. In a great intercessory prayer, Moses pleaded for mercy for his people. He did not excuse the behavior of his people, but only emphasized the long-suffering mercy of the Lord. Israel was spared destruction, but lost the privilege of immediately entering the Promised Land. For the next 38 years, they were to wander in the harsh wilderness of Sinai. During that time, they could have conquered the inhabitants of the land of promise, built cities, eaten the fruit of the land flowing with milk and honey, and raised their children in comfort and peace. But they would not, and so all above the age of 20 who had repudiated the power of the Lord, except Joshua and Caleb, were to die in the wilderness.
But Moses indicated that it was too late. The Lord had retracted the commandment to go up and possess the land, and therefore, if they went up then, they would go without his power. Then came the second stage of the tragedy. The Israelites had just lost the right to enter the Promised Land because they had refused to follow the Lord. Now, in an attempt to show how repentant they were, they refused to follow the Lord.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take the rod, and gather thou the assembly together, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice. And the water came out abundantly. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, Because ye believed me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them.
At least 2 other Old Testament passages indicate that Moses did sin in striking the rock at Meribah. Other passages, however, help to clarify the matter. Deuteronomy 3 verse 26 and 4:21 indicate that the Lord told Moses that the reason he could not enter the Promised Land was that the Lord was angry with him, for your sakes. This statement could imply that there were reasons other than the error of Moses for the prohibition. 2 other facts strengthen this supposition. First, both Moses and the higher priesthood were taken from Israel because of the people's unworthiness, not Moses. Second, Moses was translated when his mortal ministry was finished. In other words, Moses was privileged to enter a land of promise far greater than the land of Canaan. He had finished his calling in mortality, and a new leader was to take Israel into the promised land. And Moses was translated, hardly a punishment for sinning against God.
Moses referred to his people as brother Israel when he addressed the king of the Edomites, because the Edomites were direct descendants of Edom, Esau, the brother of Jacob, Israel, from whom the Israelites descended. There was therefore a blood relationship between the two peoples. The things that Moses said imply that the Edomite king was well aware of the relationship. Still, he refused to let the Israelites pass through his lands. Between the rebellion of Korah and the request for passage through the land of Edom, 38 years of wandering had transpired. For reasons not known to us now, Moses did not describe those years in this record.
What is the significance of Moses removing Aaron's clothes and placing them on Eleazar? This was, in effect, depriving him of his office, and putting the clothes on his son Eleazar implied a transfer of that office to him. The same custom continues to this day in some institutions. When an officer is installed or removed from office, ceremonial clothing is either put on or taken off, symbolizing a transfer of authority. When one departs in dishonor, he is literally stripped of his gown or robes. In the military, the cutting off of one's epaulets or insignia of rank is the same thing. Aaron, however, was not retiring in dishonor or disgrace. His death was imminent, and it was time for new and younger leadership.
For us to sustain those who have been called today, we must examine our lives, repent as necessary, pledge to keep the Lord's commandments, and follow his servants. It would be wise to determine to sustain with our faith and our prayers all those who serve us in the kingdom. I am personally aware of the power of the faith of members of the church to sustain those who have been called. I have felt in powerful ways the prayers and the faith of people whom I do not know, and who know me only as someone called to serve through the keys of the priesthood.
After reciting a seemingly small event that had great consequences, Nephi wrote, "And thus we see that by small means the Lord can bring about great things." The Old Testament includes a memorable example of this. There we read how the Israelites were plagued by fiery serpents. Many people died from their bites. When Moses prayed for relief, he was inspired to make a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole. Then, if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Such a small thing for such a miraculous result. Yet, as Nephi explained when he taught this example to those who were rebelling against the Lord, even when the Lord had prepared a simple way by which they could be healed, quote, "Because of the simpleness of the way, or the easiness of it, there were many who perished," end of quote. That example and that teaching remind us that the simplicity of the way, or the easiness of the commanded task, cannot mean that it is unimportant to achieve our righteous desire. Similarly, even small acts of disobedience or minor failures to follow righteous practices can draw us down toward an outcome we have been warned to avoid.
Ever since God appointed prophets, they've been authorized to speak on his behalf. But they don't pronounce doctrines fabricated of their own mind or teach what hasn't been revealed. Consider the words of the Old Testament prophet Balaam, who was offered a bribe to curse the Israelites to benefit Moab. Balaam said, "If the king of Moab would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more." Latter-day prophets are similarly constrained. Demanding revelation from God is both arrogant and unproductive. Instead, we wait on the Lord and his timetable to reveal his truths through the means that he has established.
The Lord was angry with Balaam for his disobedience. he sent an angel with a sword to stand before Balaam in the road. The donkey saw the angel and stopped, but Balaam could not see him and did not understand why the donkey had stopped. Balaam hit the donkey and urged it on. The donkey went only a short distance and saw the angel standing in the road between two walls. Because there was no room to turn aside, the donkey turned into the wall and Balaam's foot was crushed. Still unable to see the angel himself, Balaam angrily hit the donkey again. Farther down the road, the angel again appeared before them at a narrow part of the path. The donkey could not turn in any direction, so it fell to the ground. Balaam was very angry indeed and hit the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord caused the donkey to speak, "What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? Balaam angrily answered, Because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in mine hand, for now would I kill thee. The donkey responded, Am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? Nay, Balaam replied. Then the Lord allowed Balaam to see the angel in the road. Balaam finally understood his donkey's behavior. Ashamed, he bowed his head and fell to the ground. The angel rebuked him, explained that the donkey had saved his life, and counseled him to obey God's words. Balaam admitted, I have sinned. The angel told him, Go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto thee, thou shalt speak. Balaam went on to Moab, where Balak continued to coax and promise him great wealth and power if he would curse Israel, but Balaam refused. However, because Balaam wanted the approval of the Moabites, he told them other ways they could harm the Israelites. Sometime later, Balaam was killed by the Israelites.
The event described here is the ordination and setting apart of Joshua to the priesthood held by Moses. Special blessings, anointings, sealing of anointings, confirmations, ordinations, callings, healings, offices, and graces are conferred by the laying on of hands by the Lord's legal administrators. As with all of the Lord's prescribed procedural requisites, the proffered blessings come only when the designated formalities are observed. According to the order of God, ordination to offices in the priesthood is performed by the laying on of hands. Setting apart to positions of presidency, administration, or special responsibility comes in the same way.
The living Lord leads His living church. The Lord reveals His will for the church to His prophet. Yesterday, after we were invited to sustain Thomas S. Monson as president of the church, we also had the privilege to sustain him, the counselors in the first presidency, and members of the quorum of the 12 apostles as prophets, seers, and revelators. Think of that. We sustain 15 men as prophets of God. They hold all the priesthood keys that have ever been conferred upon man in this dispensation. The calling of 15 men to the holy apostleship provides great protection for us as members of the church. Why? Because decisions of these leaders must be unanimous. Can you imagine how the Spirit needs to move upon 15 men to bring about unanimity? These 15 men have varied educational and professional backgrounds with differing opinions about many things. Trust me. These 15 men, prophets, seers, and revelators, know what the will of the Lord is when unanimity is reached. They are committed to see that the Lord's will truly will be done. The Lord's Prayer provides the pattern for each of these 15 men when they pray. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
This group provides videos to help encourage gospel study. This is not an official church site. The materials used are all provided by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Salt Lake City, Utah, and those videos and images used under license through a subscription to CyberLink Power Director, unless otherwise noted.